Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patrick Nightingale. I'm a criminal defense attorney here in Pittsburgh. I'm a former prosecutor with the Allegheny County District Attorney's Office, and I'm the executive director of the local chapter of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Pittsburgh Norml has been in existence since October of 2009. We formed in order to bring marijuana reform here to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We've called this press conference today to bring attention and to focus attention on marijuana reform efforts here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and marijuana reform efforts nationally in the United States of America. As we know, recently there's been a lot of really encouraging news when it comes to cannabis reform in the United States. Starting in November of 2012, we had Colorado and Washington legalizing marijuana, not only for personal possession, but for manufacturing, distribution, and retail sales. The voters in those states recognized, number one, that marijuana prohibition was ridiculous, that it was causing far more harm than good, and two, that there was a significant amount of tax revenue that was being left on the table. They realized that by legalizing marijuana and moving it into a tax and regulate system, that they could restrict and control access of marijuana to teenagers. They could ensure quality product for marijuana consumers. They could take the money out of the black market and bring that money into the coffers of their respective states. In Colorado, Amendment 64 calls for marijuana revenue to go into their capital school building project because that's where their voters decided that they wanted to put this revenue in. Washington, their revenue most likely will go into education and to infrastructure development. Here in Pennsylvania, certainly we could use some additional tax revenue. Now, the idea of tax revenue to legalize what is otherwise a controlled substance merely to put some money in our pockets isn't necessarily the best idea. Would we want to legalize a dangerous substance just to make a little bit of money off of it? I submit the answer to that is no, and that's one of the reasons that we're coming out and we are bringing educational efforts and reform efforts to the voters here in Pennsylvania. We are working hard to show that marijuana is not the reefer madness drug that we've been sold on for the past 40 years, but is rather a safer and more reasonable recreational alternative than alcohol. It is most certainly safer than other controlled substances such as heroin and cocaine. For example, we don't believe that most people know that in the entire history of human civilization, there has never ever been a single fatal overdose from marijuana consumption. In fact, it would take approximately 1,500 pounds of marijuana consumption in a single day to achieve a lethal toxic overdose. But every day in this country, people are dying from prescriptive pill overdoses, from alcohol overdoses, and the message that we want to bring forward is that this is a safer alternative. It's a safer medicinal alternative if someone wants to have that discussion with their treatment provider. It's a safer recreational alternative if someone wants to recreate in a responsible adult fashion. To bring attention for this, we are rallying on September 7th, 2 days from now, in Flagstaff Hill in the Oakland section of the city of Pittsburgh. We're calling on all like-minded individuals to join us on Flagstaff Hill to rally in support of comprehensive cannabis reform in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and to help our fellow Pennsylvanians understand that this is not the dangerous drug that's going to lead to the downfall of Western civilization, but rather it is a safe, reasonable recreational alternative for adult individuals, and that we hope that our fellow Pennsylvanians will start to pay attention to this, will recognize the reform efforts that are going on in other states as a positive sign and one that can benefit us all here in Pennsylvania by giving our patients treatment alternatives, by freeing our law enforcement to use their resources on much more important areas such as protecting children from internet predation and solving violent crimes and homicides, rapes, and robberies, and potentially providing a much-needed additional source of revenue for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We've got a couple of other people who will be speaking, and at this moment I would like to introduce Teresa Collins, who's the Regional Director of the Pittsburgh Norml Women's Alliance, who also is calling for comprehensive cannabis reform. The Ms. Collins.
Hi, my name is Teresa Collins. I am the regional coordinator for the Pittsburgh Norml Women's Alliance. We've been around for about 9 months now. So far, we're getting a lot of attention. It's very positive. We are here to put a different image on cannabis reform. It's particularly a very male-dominated industry, and we feel that women bring with it a special set of issues that are different than men's issues, such as families. We think the idea that mothers can be separated from their children because of cannabis use is insane and ridiculous. We also feel that we can educate the youth and save them with the actual truth and with good education. And we also feel that the image of women shouldn't just necessarily be a sexual stereotype. We believe that's okay in its own right, but you have to control the message, and it should be a little bit more about that. And we'll be at the rally as well with the tie-dye booth, looking to kind of change the stereotype of what a cannabis user is. Over and out. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ganny Dubier, and I am with the ACLU of Pennsylvania. I think it's a really important time to be in this conversation. Earlier this summer, the ACLU released a report titled "The War on Marijuana in Black and White: Billions of Dollars Wasted on a Racially Biased Arrest." So this is the first ever report to look state by state and also nationally at the way that we arrest people for marijuana possession. So what did we find? We found that the war on marijuana is inexcusably racially biased and that it is totally ineffective. So in Pennsylvania, blacks are 5.2 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possessions than whites. So that's 5.2 times in Pennsylvania more likely to be arrested for the exact same crime. So in Allegheny County, furthermore, blacks are 5.7 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession. And in Washington County, our neighbors to the south and west, blacks are 8.6 times. That's 8.6 times more likely to be arrested than whites. And in Westmoreland County, our neighbors to the southeast, people who look like me are 8.9 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession than whites. Right? So what does this mean? It means that law enforcement is using skin color as a proxy for crime, and we know that's just not true. It also means that laws are being selectively enforced on blacks and in black communities, and that the consequences are of imprisonment and lifelong consequences after having been imprisoned and convicted are falling on mostly people who are of a certain race. So that some of those consequences include not being eligible for financial aid for school, and not being able to live in public housing. This burden is falling disproportionately on blacks. Furthermore, Pennsylvania in 2010 spent $100 million. Our taxpayer money, $100 million of our taxpayer money went to enforcing marijuana laws. So it's $100 million of Pennsylvania taxpayer money. So how are we doing, right? Well, what we found is that this money spent has absolutely not reduced the use or the accessibility of marijuana. You can easily find marijuana, and a lot of people continue to use it. So we've spent $100 million to enforce laws that then go to incarcerate a lot of people to absolutely no effect. So this war on marijuana is not only a racially biased law, but this war on marijuana is not only a racially biased law, it's also completely ineffective. So we at the ACLU of Pennsylvania feel like the solution to this is to definitely deprioritize enforcing marijuana laws, and better yet, to actually decriminalize personal possession. We think decriminalization of personal possession of marijuana is actually a really important step for this state to take. And then municipalities that might not want to do that, prioritization is incredibly important because the effects are falling mostly on minority communities, and that's completely wrong. It's just not right at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. The reason I am here today is to describe in detail the reason the use of marijuana helps me and to show my conspicuous support of the movement. For our supporters, the legalization of marijuana, and it is high time that Pennsylvania becomes a mid-runner and jumps on the bandwagon. My name is Luke McKitko. Just an average guy trying to make his way through life. I was a passenger in a near-fatal car accident in April 2002. Alcohol was most definitely involved. I had a collapsed lung, which it was estimated that I went 4.5 minutes without breathing. I had an injury to the thalamus portion of my brain, which is basically the deepest core part of your brain. And I've had other minor injuries, such as 3 broken ribs and a broken jaw. I was life-flighted to Johnstown's Conemaugh Hospital, where I spent the next 45 days. The first 23 days were spent in a coma, and the rest while I was still there was spent while trying to learn how to walk. To get back to to what it is that still affects me to this day with the brain injury, thalamus is considered to be the switchboard of information that relays the information to the subcortical area of the cerebellum cortex. But I am no doctor. I'm not going into any further parts of the brain other than the thalamus, because that is far beyond me. But what I have learned and experienced from the injuries that I sustained in my brain is that it makes it very hard for me to fall asleep. I get tired very easily. My short-term memory and memory recall is horrible. I lose consciousness very easily, and it also plays a major, injuries to the thalamus also play a major role in regulating arousal. I suffer from zone seizures, which leave my arms shaking like this, my head twitching. It looks real bad. I have poor balance and coordination, and I have a hard time concentrating, and I get distracted very easily. I've been to a neurologist here in Pittsburgh at Allegheny General Hospital, not going to mention names, who prescribed me Alavil, which is also known as amitriptyline, which at first made me feel very depressed. He also prescribed me Klonopin for the tremors, which are the zone seizures I mentioned. But after the failure of Alavil, he then prescribed me Remeron and increased the dosage of Klonopin to 1 milligram. At first, the Remeron helped me to sleep, but soon after I began its use, I became groggy off and on all day, very moody with ups and downs, and very unproductive. However, my experience with marijuana helped me to feel normal again. It's a cure for so many Pennsylvanians and so many other across the country, and our governor won't even consider the bills that are being put in front of him. It's completely ridiculous. When I've used marijuana in the past, it's solely used at home. I refuse to drive when using it, and I just want to make that perfectly clear. I am very, very safe when it comes to that. By the way, I've never had a drug charge in my life. But other merits that help with marijuana go as follows. It stimulates my appetite, which I'm sure y'all can tell I can stand to gain a few pounds. I have no problem sleeping at all. I become very creative and also very productive. I am much more organized. I'm a much more happier person and very much more polite. It helps me to feel better with my position in life. Since the car accident, I have been disabled, and that is a very depressing state in general, just to know that you're disabled. But when smoking or using marijuana, I have no worries. I'm happy. The only thing I have is solutions, and I make better. What's the word I'm looking for? I make better decisions when I'm, as opposed to the Klonopin and the Klonopin and the Remeron, which, if y'all can see, everything I have outlined here in blue are these negative side effects that I have suffered from during this time, the time that these drugs have been administered to me. And there are quite a few. I mean, some include loss of appetite, dizziness, suicidal thoughts, mood problems, mental problems, loss of consciousness, headache, dry mouth, dizziness. Well, to me, I wish I could just throw all that stuff in the trash. Insurance companies are paying for that marijuana I would be paying for. I don't understand why our government does not legalize it and make money from it rather than lose money from it. It just makes no sense, and with that I'm done. Thank you very much.
One final thought to follow up on that statement. Our medicinal marijuana law that's pending in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania right now, House Bill 1181, is entitled the Raymond P. Schaefer Compassionate Use Act. And it's entitled the Raymond P. Schaefer Compassionate Use Act after former Pennsylvania Governor Raymond Schaefer from Meadville. At the dawn of the war on drugs, the Nixon administration was unsure where to place marijuana. Should it be Schedule 1, 2, 3, or 4? All they knew was that marijuana was going to be placed in the Controlled Substances Act, and they just needed to get a better handle on it. So President Nixon tapped former Pennsylvania governor, a fellow Republican, Raymond Schaefer, and President Nixon said, Governor Schaefer, conduct a study, conduct a commission so we understand just how dangerous marijuana is and we know where to place it in our Controlled Substances Act. Governor Schaefer did his job. He did it extremely well. He chaired the National Commission on marijuana abuse and drugs of abuse. And what Governor Schaefer and his commission concluded was that marijuana should be decriminalized and possession and use of personal amounts of marijuana should be treated in a manner similar to alcohol. That it should not be criminalized, that marijuana was not so dangerous that it warranted its inclusion in the Controlled Substances Act. President Nixon summarily rejected that recommendation, and marijuana has remained a Schedule I controlled substance ever since. So when we have patients that come forward and they ask the question, why? Why is it Schedule I? Why can't there be any research done on this? Why does my government say that this is a highly addictive drug with no medicinal benefit whatsoever when we have 20 medicinal states in the United States of America? Why is that the case? Well, it's Schedule I because it was temporarily placed in Schedule I while the Nixon administration and Congress awaited Governor Schaefer's report. And when Governor Schaefer's report did not tell them what they wanted to hear, they left it in Schedule I, and it has remained in Schedule I ever since. The only study on the harm and or efficacy of marijuana as a recreational drug or as a medicinal drug was the Governor Schaefer's commission report. It was ignored, and that is why now, 41 years later, we continue to suffer arrest, prosecution, and incarceration for a naturally grown substance that a Pennsylvania governor recommended decriminalizing for personal use and possession. Thank you.